Develop like a virtual reality in your mind. Develop it so well that you can see it, you can feel it, and you can smell it. It's now going from a visualization to a sensation, like a feeling. You now feel like you're there, right? So basically, when you project that feeling into that safe space, like your safe heaven, right? You begin to feel it within you. You begin to feel that, yes, you're not in a situation that is threatening. So when you are in this virtual reality and you're able to see this peaceful area, this heavenly place where you feel safe, where you feel protected, where you feel around nature and life itself, and you're able to smell everything, you start to feel safe. You start to feel that way. And it's what it does is that it sends a signal to your brain, alerting your brain that you are in a place of peace. You are in a place of rest. You are safe. You are secured. There is no reason to be afraid. And immediately, your brain starts to send a signal to the rest of your body, informing the rest of your body that, okay guys, you can rest now. There is no threat at all. And before you know, you've been able to take yourself out of that reactive state where you're having a panic attack into a state of rest and calmness. So today's video is a very, 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 very special discussion that is so dear and close to my heart, because it's a very sensitive condition. And here in the part of the world where I live in, which is Nigeria in Africa, not Nigeria as a continent, okay, Nigeria as a country, okay, in Africa, is like, this is just something that we do not talk about often. It is something that unfortunately is not being taken as seriously as it should in this part of the world. So most oftentimes this is a condition that I feel that a lot of people probably go through, but they do not know how to basically go about it. Some probably don't even know what it feels like or what it actually means or what it really is, but they've probably experienced it before. And some persons probably experience it more often. I guess this is how, or like, this is when it's being diagnosed as a disorder. I am here to tell you guys that I have been there. I have experienced it. And what is this thing that we're talking about? We're talking about anxiety attacks. We're talking about panic attacks. Okay, so disclaimer, I don't know if there's a great difference between both of them, but I'm just going to describe the feeling here so that for those that may have not really done their research or may not probably fully grasp like what it really means in essence, can understand that, okay, this is what I am talking about. Yeah, so if you've ever been in a situation where, let's say for instance, like in my own case, I often get the panic attacks, the anxiety attack, whenever I am close to making a huge decision. It has mostly happened to me when I was close to having like a really serious talk with someone that I have great regard for, like a really serious talk, one that I feel has to be heard. But there is always that flip side of they may not understand me, and this is something that always gives me a massive attack, because in my earlier life, like in my early formative years, like in my early 20s and my late teens and early 20s, in between that phase, that period of my life, I was someone who never speaks up, right? I was someone who had a lot of ideas. I had a lot of alternatives in my mind when it comes to social situations with my friends or someone that I'm dating, but I never speak up. And it's not because I never wanted to, okay? It's simply because I just, at that time, I didn't quite know how to articulate my feelings or my thoughts per se, but I genuinely wanted to speak up, right? So there was a part of my life where I encountered people, like a group of friends, who would encourage me to speak up. Like, they often encourage me to, give my own opinion. So that was the period of my life that I actually started, like giving out my opinion on certain subject matters or whatever the discussion is in the group. In that period of my life, I noticed that many a times my opinions were not being acknowledged. Like, it wasn't being noticed, it wasn't being validated. It's almost as if they didn't even hear me speak. Okay, and especially when I would have quarrels or fights with these people that were dear to me, because they were like the first group of people that I ever expressed something deep within to. So like, whenever we would have this fight or like misunderstanding, I would often find myself in a state where I am completely dumb, unable to speak. Like, I can't speak. I would feel numb because I had gone through that series of whatever I say being ignored. And even when I do get encouraged and I eventually speak up after being, like pushed to say what's on my mind, it would be greatly misunderstood and it would be twisted and used to judge me. So basically, for the longest time in my relationship with people, when it comes to having that sit down talk, like that real talk, it was something that had always given me a great scare. And I never even knew that this was such a serious problem. I never knew that it was such a big deal. I never knew that it was like a trauma within me until I started to really, really pay attention to how I react whenever I find myself in a position where I have to have like a real talk with a friend. I hate the whole malice, whatever. Like, I just hate having to know that I have something to express and you have something to express, but nobody's talking. So I noticed that whenever I find myself in such a situation, I get panic attacks, or should I call it anxiety attacks, right? I start to panic out of fear. And I'm telling you, this is not just like a feeling. Like, literally, I would find myself sweating profusely, and most oftentimes my heart would beat so freaking fast. Like, it would beat so fast as though it was going to come out of my chest. Like, I would be sweating and I would be so afraid. It just feels as though it's about to give up on me. So if you've ever experienced a similar feeling such as that, well, this video is for you. I don't know what your own unique situation might be, but if your panic attack comes as a result of, or in moments when you're about to make a huge decision that could change the rest of your life, or it comes when you're about to express yourself to a loved one, or it comes whenever you are faced with a direct threat, maybe you are faced with, let's say, an animal, or you're being attacked, or you're being robbed, or stuff like that, and you start to get a panic attack. These tips, I believe, would really, really help you to deal with the situation in the moment, okay? Disclaimer though, these are not medically advised. I don't know if there is any like professional advice out there where these methods are advised or approved, or where they work. I don't know if there's been an experiment conducted or stuff like that, but I just know that these are tips that have worked for me personally, and these are tips that I did not just stumble upon. These were things that I really, really pondered upon, and I tried it and I know that it worked for me. I never really understood why until later on, and this is why I felt the need to make this video, with the hopes of at least, I'm not trying to say that it is okay to replace these tips with whatever medications you have going on. I'm just saying that in the moment when you find yourself, let's say you're not even close to your pills, or you're not close to where you can instantly get help or get out of the moment, this is something that you might want to consider trying. If it works for you, well, fine. If it doesn't, well, you could, I guess, look for other methods that work for you. But these methods really did genuinely work for me. They brought great results, and I'm just here to simply share it from the love of my heart. So these are my 3 unpopular anxiety attack management tips. So my tip number 1 is Borrow frequency. Borrow frequency. If you've never heard or read much about frequencies and vibrations and all of that, you may probably find this point extremely stupid and useless. But I promise you that if you give me your time in this very moment and try to understand what I'm about to say to you, you will be mind blown, okay? You'll be mind blown. So I will try my very best to simplify this explanation. So what do I mean by borrowing frequency? Okay, let me explain it this way. So I remember when I was still in school, I had anxiety attacks multiple times, and most of those times I found myself alone. And mind you, I was not using any medication. Even till this day, I don't use medication for my anxiety attacks. I just somehow managed to find a way to control it within myself, and it has worked greatly for me. It has really, really worked greatly for me. I haven't even had any attacks since the beginning of this year, and this is currently September. Sorry, I had to check my calendar because my head is so filled up right now. So this is currently September, and since the beginning of this year, I have not had any anxiety attacks. Okay, now straight to the explanation. Borrow frequency. What do I mean by borrowing frequency? In my early years, when I used to have this anxiety attacks of a thing, when it was still new to me, when I had not done my study about what it means and how dangerous it could be and stuff like that, when it was still new to me, I would experience it, and I would often ask myself, why is this happening? Like I would be so confused. And the worst thing is, I never really got to talk to anybody about it. I do not personally advise that you don't talk to anybody about it. If you have an extreme situation, please do talk to someone about it. However, in my own case, I feel like my situation was kind of extreme, but in that period of my life, I wasn't really feeling life. So I guess I place a very low value on my health at the moment, and that was understood. But point is, the very first time that I was ever able to have like a grip, a real control over my anxiety attack situation was this very night in school. That day I was certain, guys, like it was so scary that I was certain this was the day that I was going to die. Like my heart was beating so fast. My chest, my left arm was paining me. It was really hurting so bad. I remember at that time there was this one song. This very one song is a very old song. It's from a children Christian program that I used to watch when I was a kid. Okay, so it was one of their songs that was personally one of my favorite at the time. So the song was rendered. It was sang by a bunch of children sitting down by a campfire in the dead of night, just singing to the Lord and stuff like that. The title of the song is God is My Refuge and Strength by Colby's Clubhouse Cast. I guess that's how you can search for it. So this song, that night when this happened, it was really late at night. It was like 12 a.m. or something, and around that time in school, most students are probably on their beds sleeping. And around the area where I live, I didn't really have any friends, so I just couldn't think of who I could call in that moment to come help me, because I didn't even understand what was going on with me. But I knew that something was badly wrong, and I knew that I had to either do something right now, or I had to just surrender to whatever consequences might come. So yeah, like I said, it wasn't a very, very exciting period of my life. I thought of all the people that I could call. I just thought of, overthinking. I felt I would be disturbing these people and whatnot. So I finally decided to surrender to whatever consequences the attack might bring. So I remember when I laid in my bed, I wrote my goodbye note, because I was legit certain that this was going to be my last day on earth. So I wrote my goodbye note to my family, goodbye to my siblings and stuff. After I wrote that note, I laid on my bed. Yeah, I laid on my bed. It was a very dark and quiet night. There was no light. You know, we Africans, we always have this issue with electricity. So there was no electricity in my house that day. So you could imagine how pitch dark it was. And I felt like I was the only person in the whole world that was awake. So as I laid on my bed, my phone at the time had just 5% of battery left in it. So so what I did was I unlocked the door of my room, which I never do. I always lock my room from anything 8 or 9, or like once I'm in, because you know, just to prevent thieves and all of that, because I was actually living alone, right? So I unlocked the door of my room at that moment before laying on my bed. And I did that because, you know, in my own mind, I'm just going to surrender, try to lay on the bed, see if I could sleep, which was really impossible. I was thinking in my mind, okay, if I manage to sleep, I probably won't wake up the next morning. So that way, if people come looking for me, my door is not locked. I thought in my mind, if I leave my door unlocked, whenever anybody comes looking for me and they knock, they don't find me in the classroom, they don't find me anywhere, and they come to my apartment and they knock and then they open the door, they'll probably find my body, hopefully before it is rotten. I know it's not a very pretty image, but just hear me out. So I laid on my bed and I looked at my phone. It was remaining just 5%, right? I thought to myself, okay, what can I do with my phone? And mind you, in this very moment, my heart was still beating, my left arm was still badly hurting, like it was really hurting, like it was about to dismember itself from the rest of my body. And my heart rate was really high. It was a cold night, but I was really sweating. I was scared, I was shaking. So it just occurred to me, I don't know why in that moment, that was the only thing that made sense for me to do. But I went to my music app and I went to my playlist and I looked for that song, God Is My Refuge and Strength, and I played it and I put it on repeat. Then I dropped my phone by the side of my bed and I closed my eye and I just connected my mind to that song, because at the time it was the only thing that was making noise in the room. So I was just connected to the song. I kept listening to it on repeat. I think it went on for about 30 to 45 minutes that I could remember. I was still awake around that time before I fell asleep, right? Before I slept off. And before you know it, I opened my eyes. It was the next morning and I was feeling much better. So when I found myself awake, I was really surprised and I just didn't know really what to make of it. So I never really thought that the song had such great effect. So that was just for the first experience, yeah. The second time it happened, I played that song again. The second time this happened was still in school. It was about maybe 3 or 4 months apart the second time around. I played that song again and it really helped. It helped to calm my mind. So recently, while I was writing out the script for this video, I started to meditate. I started to ask the question, why did this song have such great impact? Why did it help relax and calm my mind? Why did it help with my anxiety attack? I could not connect the dots until I started reading about frequency, and that was what brought me to knowing about Nikola Tesla, the great scientist. I never even knew about him. I never read about him until this year. And when I started to really go in depth into his teachings about vibrations and energy and frequency, I really started to understand that there is such great power in frequencies, in sound frequencies. And I think to myself that the reason why that song really worked for me is, first of all, it was because of the frequency of the song. Because I could remember whenever I played that song when I was having an attack, I would, because I've seen the video of that song, yeah, so I would I would project my subconscious into the moment that song was actually sang. I would project myself into the scenery where the children were seated around a campfire. It was dark at night and they were the only ones there and they were singing the song. So I would put myself there, and it was so comforting because the song was also sung by children, yeah, and children are the most innocent souls. So it felt as though when I project my subconscious into the song, I was borrowing the frequency of the innocence of these children, and I don't know how to explain it really, but it kind of healed me. So basically, all I'm trying to say is, when it comes to borrowing frequency, just think of a song or a sound that truly brings you peace. And one tip in thinking of the right sound or the right song is, make sure it is a song that you can visually relate to, because when you play the song, in order for this tip to really work effectively for you, you have to be able to visualize the song in a way like you have a connection to the song, so you actually know when it was sang. So if you could watch, let's say, the video of the song, so that each time you are playing it, you're able to connect with the moment that the song was originally delivered. I don't know if that makes any sense. So yeah, that basically worked for me. So it's more like a hearing and a visual sensory kind of thing. So yeah, you have to borrow frequency, because at this moment your frequency is low. This is how it works. So when you're having an anxiety attack, right, it's as though your frequency is on a certain level that is unhealthy for your being as a human being. So what happens is that when you borrow the frequency from this song that was sung in such in spirit of hope and love and care and togetherness, when you bring in that song to your body, which is through your ear in this scenario, right, you are borrowing the frequency that is infused or that is inside of that song. You're borrowing it and you're putting it into yourself. So that frequency kind of raises your current state of vibration, and that basically helps to calm you. Like it kind of stabilizes you, and when you give it time, before you know, you're as good as before. Second anxiety attack management tip is to develop an anchor. Develop an anchor. What do I mean by developing an anchor? Develop like a virtual reality in your mind. Develop it so well that you can see it, you can feel it, and you can smell it. So this method is basically a method that you have to work on before you encounter any anxiety attack problems, right? So this is a method that would work for you. Let's say if your attack comes in a period or in a moment where you do not have your phone and you cannot play your music, the music that should calm you down, this method would work so well, because this is like basically about you creating a virtual reality in your head, one that you can smell, one that you can feel, one that you can see, one that feels so real. And basically this is something that would follow you anywhere you go. So even if you're having an anxiety attack in the middle of the ocean alone with no phones and nothing, because I mean we probably all have moments when we are not with our phones. Let's say you're in the bathroom and you fell or something happened, you're not with your phone, you cannot start playing your song immediately. So what do? You create an anchor. So this anchor is a virtual reality, one that you can see, one that you can smell, and one that you can feel. To make this much more understandable to you, so for me, my own virtual reality is whenever I am in a situation where I cannot access my phone in that moment of my attack, So I have this vision of a place that is filled with trees. There's a waterfall on this side. You know, there are so many trees. It is almost like a rainforest, but it's more like, it's not really like those Amazon rainforest kind of rainforest. It's more like those Disney cartoons kind of rainforest, right? You see the birds so happy, birds of different colors, birds of different, sounds and voices. They're just chirping and singing in the atmosphere. And on this other side, there is a waterfall. It's falling so peacefully, it's so flowy, it's so sweet and all of that. And then there's a smell of nature that is coming from the wet soil. And then there is the trees are so green, they're all filled up with so much life and all of that. There are the butterflies going from flowers to flowers. I put myself in this virtual reality, yeah, and I can almost perceive the smell of the wet soil. I can perceive the smell of nature. So it's now going from a visualization to like a sensation, like a feeling, like you now feel like you're there, right? So basically, when you project that feeling into that safe space, like your safe heaven, right? You begin to feel it within you. You begin to feel that, yes, you're not in a situation that is threatening, right? So it convinces your mind, because one thing I learned about the mind is that your mind cannot differentiate between what you are currently looking at and what you are feeling inside of your head. So this is kind of a trick to trick the mind. So this is kind of a method like to trick your mind to relax and, basically get you out of that state of a panic attack or an anxiety attack. So when you are in this virtual reality and you're able to see this peaceful area, this heavenly place where you feel safe, where you feel protected, where you feel around nature and life itself, and you're able to smell everything, you start to feel safe. You start to feel that way. And it's what it does is that it sends a signal to your brain, alerting your brain that you are in a place of peace. You are in a place of rest. You are safe. You are secured. There is no reason to be afraid. And immediately, your brain starts to send a signal to the rest of your body, informing the rest of your body that, okay, guys, you can rest now. There is no threat at all. And before you know, you've been able to take yourself out of that reactive state where you're having a panic attack into a state of rest and calmness, right? So in that moment, your body is not facing any threat. So now you have to just probably just get the situation off your mind or whatever you're going to do afterwards. So another thing is that for this method to actually work, like I said, do not wait until you have the panic attack. This is something that you can even work on right now. Just create your own version of a safe place. For some persons, it could be the vision of their bedroom in their family house. For some persons, it could be on a family-sized chair with their mother sitting right by their side, holding them. That could be the vision. If that is the vision that brings you peace and calmness, what I want you to do is practice that vision right now, or whenever you can. Practice that vision. Learn to feel it and live in that vision. I want you to do it over and over and over and over again until it has registered in your mind. So when you practice it in your mind, what you're doing is you're basically training your mind to get used to that reality. Because what it does is that once you practice it, when you practice it religiously, your mind gets used to the fact that, okay, this place is a safe place for this person. So what you do is you kind of register it. So it's kind of like a folder in your mind. So whenever you come across a threatening situation, you're able to open up that folder, and you don't even need to go anywhere to do this. You could do it anywhere. That is the best part of it, because it's your mind. So you go into your mind, you access your mind, borrow this folder, open it up, then your mind does the rest. Because if you do not have that vision strongly within you, and you want to use that vision when you are experiencing the panic attack, because in that moment you are trying to use your brain to form an image, so you're just going to stress the brain more. So but when it is an image or a video that your brain is already used to, you almost don't have to think about it. All you have to do is close your mind and concentrate. Once you concentrate, your brain will take you to that very place by itself. You don't need to use your brain to create these other details just so that it won't work. Because what happens when you're having a panic attack is because your brain is seeing something, due to your own perception of the situation, whatever the situation might be. Your brain is seeing it, so it's basically processing this, and all it can read is threat. This is all threats. And then you're trying to use your brain to create an image that you've never really created before. No, it's not going to work. It is not going to work. So how this works is that you get used to that virtual reality. So just know that this is your safe space, and whenever you need it, you access it. Okay, so my third anxiety attack management tip is abort mission by adopting another. So what do I mean by abort mission by adopting another? Okay, so what I'm saying is, when you're in that moment where you're facing the threat, the threat that is basically causing this anxiety attack within your body, within your soul, and within your body, right? Try to ignore it. I know what you're thinking. Girl, it's impossible to ignore it. What I mean is, ignore it, but by giving your brain another thing to focus on. And not just any other thing. We're talking about something that engages you, that does not really require much brain power or brain calculations to function, like playing a game. So this method can only work in cases where it is not yet extreme, if that makes any sense. Let's say you're probably having a high blood pressure in the moment because you've been overthinking and stuff like that, and you're starting to feel it within your body that there is tension. That tension is building up. I feel like anxiety attacks don't just come. You basically start to feel it building up and building up. So before it gets to that extreme point, that is when this method is actually very good. So what you do is distract your mind by doing something else that is, stimulating in an exciting way, something that really captures the whole of your mind, where you do not have, you barely have room to think about anything else. So for some persons, it could be playing a video game. For some persons, it could be maybe going to play football. For some persons, it could be playing a game, like a mobile game, like a racing game. Racing game actually works for me. I cannot, because I always try to avoid being hit by a car and stuff. So I always have my full mind on a racing game. Racing games are the only games that I personally know how to play without, like, while I'm playing it, I cannot think of anything else. Okay, so yeah, do whatever works for you, but basically abort that mission by adopting another mission. Remember guys, these are not medically proven tips. These are just personal tips that have really greatly worked for me for over 5 years. Since the first time that I experienced my first panic attack, I have never taken any drug. I have never gone to the hospital. I have never gotten diagnosed, but I've been able to manage it. And right now, I feel like this year, so far so good. It hasn't actually been the smoothest year, but I think that I have finally gotten my body to a place where it has a very good grip on the panic attack problem. So, but do not take my word for it. I just want you to basically do your research and see what works for you. This is what worked for me. It might work for someone, or perhaps I just know that these tips, I do believe that it does have a great effect. Unfortunately, I do not have all the scientific explanation for it, but perhaps someone would find this video, someone who has all the research equipment and whatever facilities to just test and experiment on this. But this is something that has really worked for me, so I just thought that I should put it out there and share it with someone else who is out there, who probably, maybe it could be because you do not have access to, quick medication, or you're also in a country or the part of the world where these things are not being treated, they're not being looked at, or they're not being talked about often. You understand? And you're just all alone with your problems and you do not know how to explain to anyone. This is what has worked for me, and I really hope in my heart that it does work for you too. So leave a comment in the comment section. Please give this video a like and give this video a share. Okay, you could be helping or saving a life out there when you consider doing this. And of course, guys, do not forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.